Hello there, thanks for stopping by again. We've got an interesting blog this week. The weather is turning a little bit more autumnal, and so to kind of tie in with the change of the seasons and that sort of thing, we've got a Trappist ale. You might recall that we started out earlier in the year with a Trappist beer, sort of fairly strong, fairly full flavour, the Chimay Red. What we've got is a completely different style of beer. Now, this beer is Orval. It's unusual as a Trappist beer in that they only produce, at this monastery, they produce one sort of beer and they only bottle it. So we don't have the range of beers that you might expect from a Trappist monastery. And the other interesting thing about it is that the majority, we'll talk in generalities, the majority of the other Trappist beers are all fairly sweet and kind of malt driven. Now, Orval is interesting because it's very, very hoppy in comparison with the other Trappist beers. Now, what I like about this beer at this time of year, as we kind of move into autumn, is that it kind of goes with a lot of autumnal foods. It's really good with game, it's really good with root vegetables. You know, as the weather gets colder, you start to kind of eat more stews and maybe like pearl barley and that kind of thing. And it just kind of has a real nice resonance with all those earthy flavours. Now, we're going to use a huge, irritating burgundy balloon for this. Now, the other reason that I wanted to kind of blog on this and start the Orval Project is that I found a batch of bottles that these have only very recently been bottled. They've got a bottling date on them, and they were bottled on the 4th of the 6th, 2008. So that's really only 3 months ago that these have been bottled. Now, Orval is known for containing a really interesting yeast called Brettanomyces. Now, Brettanomyces is an interesting yeast because it adds what some people think are not very nice flavours to beer and to wine and to other things. Now, in wine, a little bit of Brett some people quite like. It gives it a little bit of kind of dirt and filth. Personally, I don't really like it in wines. I like my wines to be really clean and pure and taste of fruit. Now, I don't really know how this beer is going to develop. What I've done is I've bought 6 bottles of this, and this is the first #1 in the Orval project. And what I want to do is kind of track this over the next year. I'm going to cellar the other 5 bottles of this beer. And so what we're going to do here is record a little base note, tasting note, as to what this beer is like, and then we're going to return to the other bottles in the cellar in a few months and see if the Brettanomyces yeast in the bottle, because it's bottle conditioned, has kind of come to life and is starting to bloom and to blossom. Because this Orval is known for having what's described as a horse blanket character. That's the character that the Brettanomyces imparts to it. It's kind of slightly dirty, slightly filthy, as I've said. But we're going to see if this, now I'm fairly sure that because this is such a young bottle, it won't have taken on that character yet. The nose is there's a little bit of kind of malt sweetness you can detect. You can't smell sweetness, of course, but it smells as though it's going to be sweet. But there's a lot of hop there as well. It's very lively on the tongue. Kind of that's a characteristic of a lot of Belgian beers, kind of super saturated with carbon dioxide. But that's fairly clean. It's fairly dry. It's very, very hop accented. There's not a lot of residual sweetness left in there. It's fairly dry, and right at the back I can just kind of detect a very kind of slight mousiness that is what I sort of associate with Brett. There's a very kind of low level funkiness. It's what the Americans term funk, right in the back of the beer there. Now, like I say, at the moment it's clean, it's dry, there's a tiny hint of funk going on in the background. What I'm interested to do is now, you know, track the beers. There's going to be a little bit of bottle variation between bottles, but it's quite unusual to find such a young bottling of this beer. So what I'm looking forward to doing is tracking it, recording some more tasting notes, reviewing earlier videos, and just seeing how the batch changes over the year. I hope that doesn't sound like too academic a pursuit. If it does, I'm sorry, but you know, I'm a beer geek and I'm not ashamed to admit it. This is One's for Savouring. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time.